Hey guys, so what we're going to do in this video is kind of talk a little bit more about guaranteeing, or as close to guaranteeing, business success as possible, whether you're starting out fresh or even a seasoned pro. Following these 7 tips is going to get you a long way. So the very first step is due diligence. You can't really get away from it at the end of the day. You need to make sure that your product, whether it's software, physical product, things like that, is going to work for you. Is it going to work for your audience, right? So one of the things you want to make sure of is, how can I test this with the market and see if it's going to actually work with them? So depending on your product, there's a few different ways you can kind of go about it. One of the things that I like to do is set up a more like a beta test realm, since I do a lot of software, right? But you can extend this to physical products as well. Setting up a basic web page, ClickFunnels does this, MailChimp does this as well. There's a few variations of different places. Even GoDaddy has basic websites set up. But the goal is you want to gather as many emails as possible, signups as possible, things like that trigger the event of this person is excited about this thing or wants to know more. Sometimes it's just clicking on a link on a web page, right? So you can send that out on Facebook groups, Reddit posts, YouTube videos, run $10 on TikTok ads, YouTube ads, etc., Facebook ads, $5-6. Get it in front of people and see what the engagement's like. So there's no hard and fast rule for whether or not you think the market fits. If you understand somewhat of the market you're in, it'll make a lot more sense when you start looking at the numbers. For example, if we're setting up a AI SaaS company that does some video editing, right? If you pop it on there, throw up a basic web page, put it in the right Facebook groups, throw $5 at the ads, $10 at the ads to just boost a post. Sometimes even putting out, job listings for things. Are people excited about it that way? There's a lot of different ways you can kind of go about it. Once you get through that and you have, let's say, over the course of a week, 5, 10 signups, 20 signups, you've got enough to kind of move forward past the due diligence phase. You've kind of set yourself up for success the right way. So the second stage is competitor analysis, right? You've proven that the audience is interested in the product or the potential idea, the software, whatever it ends up being. You want to make sure that you understand a few concepts about competitors, and very rarely are you working into competitors or a space that doesn't have any competitors, right? So 9 times out of 10, you're going to run into 1 or 2. And when that happens, you want to know a few things. One of the big things you want to understand is, what are they doing wrong, right? Everybody looks to see what they're doing right. That's great. They're a competitor. They're there for if they're running ads, chances are they're making money, right? But what are they doing wrong? What are their reviews? What does Business Bureau say about them? What are the YouTube videos saying about them? Everybody talks about, Better Business Bureau and Yelp reviews and things like that, but they don't really take into consideration the fact that YouTube reviews offer a lot of examples on what this could be doing better, what it could be doing wrong, and anything in between, right? So, and that will help you identify where the gaps are for your competitor, right? And this might be an example of, maybe the product idea that you have is perfectly fine, but the execution of it is different. For example, instead of doing video editing, right? And if we use previous example, take the video editing. However, now you offer a service that AI companies that do video editing can utilize to make their process better, right? Similar space, similar idea, but now you're going from customer to business. Maybe that's the competitor advantage that you have at that particular moment in time. But again, it's all going to be based on the evaluation of what you find out with your competitor. What I generally do is I'll throw a spreadsheet together and throw a pros and cons column in there. For every competitor gets a different sheet, and I just go through it, right? Whether I found it on a YouTube video, whether I found it on a Twitter post, whether I found it on a Facebook, group where people are talking about it, random forums. The goal is you've identified what the gaps are, good and bad, for all the competitors, and then that'll help you build what is the MVP essentially for your product, to make it as most effective as possible. If you're talking SaaS companies, that's pretty straightforward on features. If you're talking physical products, that could be upgrading the material costs. It could be upgrading the quality in certain pieces, the way the bolts are structured, the feel of the packaging. Like, I know people that have taken the same product, right? They did drop shipping, etc. They took the same product, except the only thing they changed was the packaging. And that was it. 10, 15 grand a month on Amazon FBA. Like it is what it is, right? Like they've done it Shopify store to start with, and then they moved into larger batch processing, right? So in the feeling of the package, there's a reason why Apple products feel good, right? There's a reason why Rolls Royce feels good. It's the feeling of it. And a lot of times the feeling overlays the quality when you open up a package. Now, you obviously don't want to put terrible product in a good packaging. That won't fly very long, but you want to have at least a good match and blend of it. You can have the greatest product ever, but if it doesn't feel right, the packaging doesn't seem clean, it's not straightforward, you'll run yourself into a lot less sales, right? It's no different than making good pictures or good ads. So number 3 is your MVP, right? You want to get that running immediately, right? Software companies, we kind of don't get a little bit of play with this number like physical products do, right? Digital products like an ebook, right? Like you can pre-sell an ebook before it's out, right? So you can go ahead and start the selling process before it's even out. Once you've got it completed, you send it out to the people that have paid for it. They understand they're on a waiting list. They understand it's going to take the next 2 weeks or whatever not to get it out there. But your goal is to figure out whichever component it is for your business, get that MVP out, right? It's okay when you go through, like, let's say SaaS company, right? You did your competitor research, you've identified everything around it that you want, and you've got your feature list of good and bad things that the competitors are doing or aren't doing. And then that builds out your roadmap, right? You've got a list of like 20 things you want to develop in there, and that's fine. You can do that. But if it's going to take you the next 6 to 12 months or more to get a basic MVP out, you're going to lose that motivation real fast, right? And some people can continue and push through it, but for most of us, myself included, like 6 to 12 months to build something out is for just to get it running for the first time. It doesn't work that way for me, right? And I know I speak for a lot of us in that regard, right? The important piece here, past that point, is get your MVP out as soon as possible, no matter what it is, right? Whatever the minimum viable product you can to get the process rolling, to get people moving and using the software, using the product, and then you make your adjustments as you go. It's perfectly fine to make adjustments as you go. Number 4, this one of the most important is you need to measure everything. I don't care what business you are. I don't care if you run an agency, a SaaS company, physical product. I don't care what it is. You need to measure everything. Who's clicking on what? Where are they coming from? How many people are signing up for your service? How much money's coming in? How much money's going out? You need to measure everything. How long are people sitting on your website, right? Like there's a thing called Lucky Orange, right? That'll track the user on the site, what they're clicking, how long they're staying, are they sitting on a particular page for too long? Are they clicking on things? And it shows you where problems are. Right? That's the goal, is it will tell you when you need to scale, when you don't need to scale, when you need to hold, features you need to add, features you need to remove, right? You can get into A/B testing and whatnot with this, but in this case, you just need to measure everything. Anything you put in place, have some way that you can identify, is it working or is it not working? If you do that, you'll know where to cut things, right? It's okay to cut a feature, right? It's okay to have spent a month developing something, you put it out there, nobody wants it, nobody cares, nobody uses it. That means you messed up somewhere early on, right? And that's okay. Learn to cut things when you need to. But to cut things, you have to know what the data says about the thing for you to cut it, right? Whether that's people, whether that's technology, whether that's process, it doesn't matter, right? All comes down to the same thing: know where to cut it, know where to scale, and know where to stay. You got to measure it. So number 5, a lot of people wait a little too long for this, but you need to build a roadmap for your company and or your product, if not both, right? I'm going to use the product piece in this particular case, because that could be software, it could be digital, could be physical, doesn't matter, right? So you'll want to have a feature set. What are you planning to do over the next 6 months? What are you planning to do over the next month? What are your immediate items? What's your data behind the immediate items? What's your data behind the long-term items, right? Where do you want to be long-term, a year from now? What product, what features do you want? Are there extra side-ons that you can add? to fluff up the product. If you're doing something like, we'll use the video editing example, right? So if you're doing something with video editing, maybe the amount of minutes, what you're basing your costs on, right? So that's part of the measuring thing. You know what your costs are. From that point onwards, now you can build, okay, so we know later down the year, everything's rolling good. Maybe we've given everybody a lot more minutes than of uploading time or processing time. Now, all of a sudden, let's go ahead and move it over to a new tier 6 months later that has a much higher option for it. The point here is build your roadmap of your features, where you want your company. Are you going to hire an ads person, right? Are you going to hire a social media manager? Like, all these things you want to try to plan out at some point so you can start taking the time back from what you're doing, because I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people, we are not experts at everything, right? I am not an ads person. I suck at ads. It is what it is. So I get people in that can do that particular piece, right? Know what you're good at, learn what you can. I'm not saying go and dumb it out and just hire for everything, right? You need to understand the process for you. You need to understand what basic advertisement is, what to look for, because you still have to know how to measure, right? Comes all the way back to number 4 to measure it. So number 6, this kind of goes with measuring, and it should be done hand in hand, but you need to document and automate anything you can. If you're not at automation stage yet, that's perfectly acceptable, right? Perfectly acceptable to not do automation at this point, but you need to document everything. So standard operating procedures, if you have a sales team or a customer service team, how do you want them to interact with customers? How do you want them to respond to certain instances? When do you give refunds? When do you not give refunds? How you pick up the phone? You need to give all of that information to your employees so that they're ready to go, right? It also helps you. It also helps the sale of the company further down the line. That people are willing to pay a lot more for a company when all of the procedures, process, everything's nice, tipped in the right spot. There's no issues. You're good, right? And you can eliminate a lot of issues. Basically, anything you have a process for, you write it down. Same thing with automation. Plan to automate every possible thing you can. You need to automate everything. There's no way around it. Automation is going to get you to scale. You can scale with people, but take it from me, you can't scale forever with people. You have to be able to scale with automation and technology. There's no way around it. And figure out where those places are. How do you do that? You go back to number 4, you measure. You measure everything. How much time is people taking that I'm hiring to do this? How much time is it taking me to do this? Measure everything. So the final piece of this video, and if I leave you with anything here, is if you do these 2 things, you will succeed, right? The very first thing, don't give up, right? You start your process, know where to cut your ties, of course. Use your data to decide that. But don't give up on yourself, especially way too early, and learn how to problem solve. If you can do those 2 things, and you can solve the problems you run into, and you're not willing to give up on yourself, you will succeed. At this point, it's just a matter of when and how, right? It might not be your first project, might not be your second project, it might be your 10th project, but guess what? If you follow these steps and you don't give up on yourself and you learn to solve the problems that are in front of you one at a time, don't try to analysis paralysis yourself, right? One problem at a time, solve it, move on, solve it, move on. Everything will fall away like dominoes, and then you'll start realizing that, okay, this is not impossible. I'm perfectly able to do it. Let me know if you guys want to see any more of this in more detail. I can make videos on each and a particular one. Just let me know. Other than that, have a good one, guys.